Whenever there is a war or the threat of war, we have to watch commodity prices very closely because this will impact everyone's daily lives. I'm going to bring you some information today that you need to understand. This is important, number one, because of the wars that are taking place, but also those that may happen in the near future. Very worrisome. The second thing is energy, and I'll broadly explain what's happening with commodities, show you the more recent prices. I think it's important to look at the data to be able to decide what you need to do for yourself and for your family. That information is contained right here. So stick with me, you don't want to miss it. Let's begin. This was from a few days ago. I want to show you the chain of events. China sends 71 warplanes and 7 ships towards Taiwan in 24 hours. Both sides are really getting at each other. We know the divisions here. The US is saying we want to help out Taiwan. Taiwan is kind of saying, we're independent, but some of them are saying, no, that's not the case. You look at China, they're saying we're part of one country. China at the same time is saying do not get involved to the US. The US is saying we're going to send Nancy Pelosi over there. They are really heating up right now today. There's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of hearsay, there's a lot of threats. So much has happened over the last while. Now we have China sailing warships near Guam in warning to the US over Taiwan. So they're doing the same thing. They're saying, okay, you want to do this, we're going to do that. Back and forth. What about this? Taiwan is extending military service mandates from 4 months to 1 year as tensions with China keep the island nation on edge. They are preparing for war. They're doing military drills. They've seen many differences and many changes occur over the last while. They really want to be able to be prepared for a potential invasion, but obviously they can't defend themselves. The United States is kind of saying, well, we'll defend you. I'm not sure if that's really going to happen and if there will ever be a hot war, but it's just really brewing today. It's unbelievable. Russia and China rehearse attacking an enemy submarine in joint naval exercise days after Beijing sent the wave of 71 fighter jets towards Taiwan. Unbelievable to see this going on right now. Russia and China are on every level, economically, politically, and in this case, militarily aligned 100%. They have many differences historically, but they're kind of pushed into a corner and they're saying, okay, well, now we're best friends because, we have to. That's just the way it goes. So this is going on all around us. Turkey, Syria, defense ministers meet in Moscow. Talks between the senior official of the two Middle East neighbors were the first in more than a decade. So I'm watching what happens here, and Russia seems to be mediating in this case. Will be interesting to see how this unfolds. This region, obviously really hot. A lot is happening, and we need to pay attention because hopefully we could see more peace, a de-escalation in what had happened in many recent years. So watch very carefully. Watch very closely. Conflict or the threat of conflict can have a significant impact on the price of crude oil, as oil is a globally traded commodity and any disruption in its production or transportation can affect the supply and demand balance. If a major oil producing country is involved in a war, it could disrupt oil production and could lead to a reduction in the global oil supply, which could drive up the price. In the case of a war involving China and the United States, the impact on crude oil could be significant. If the conflict were to disrupt oil production or transportation in either country, or in the regions where they import oil from, it could have a heavy impact on the global oil market. Additionally, if the conflict were to escalate and involve other major oil producing or consuming countries, it could further disrupt the global oil market and lead to even higher price increases. It's worth noting that there are many other factors that can also impact the price of crude oil, such as economic conditions, demand for oil, and the actions of major oil producing countries. All of this really key information that we must be paying attention to as we look at what else is occurring. Not now, Europe, second war threatens to explode. What are we talking about here? Well, Serbia places security forces on Kosovo border at state of full combat readiness. This is some of the tensions that have been going on for a long time in these places. As of this recording, things have changed. I'll show you that in a second. Tension soars as Kosovo shuts main border crossing with Serbia. So that was on the 28th. And then we look at this more recently. Serbs agreed to dismantle the barricades after talks. So the tension has cooled down a bit, but it just shows us that we can have one after another of these conflicts and tensions, geopolitical problems that aren't really resolved a lot of times. They're just like, okay, we're not going to fight each other right now, but we're not necessarily resolving our issues. So it's like any minute something could spark. And that shows us how quickly things can change. It could happen in between Kosovo and Serbia, or it could also happen in between China and the United States. War and supply chain issues dominated the steel markets in 2022. So I need to cover this obviously, and I'll look at some issues, but know that there's a direct link between war, conflicts, tensions, and the prices of commodities. And then on top of that, you have traders and algorithms that are watching these activities and then, making things go crazy, absolutely crazy, through the roof or down through the floor. Remember what happened with oil trading in the negative? Did you know that? I mean, it's incredible. In fact, I'm going to share some much more detail that you need to know. Just hit that subscribe. It's right next to the like button. I'm going to bring you some cool stuff you probably didn't know. Let me look at this now. Raw steel started the year with a huge bang, rising over 12% between January and February. Supply chain pinches and geopolitical events made the steel market highly volatile in 2022. So many things happen, and that's just steel. That's just one commodity. You look at the price of it. Really, it's going to be affected by what happens with the supply and demand. If we suddenly have a recession, less steel is needed. They're not going to build the big buildings. They're not going to use the raw material, and therefore now the refineries are not being used as much. Now you have less jobs in these factories and places. So many things are affected by the commodity cycle. Cycles do happen. What about mining? When they go through the mining cycles, we need to realize that this is something you can't just turn on and off. So we watch that as well. Looking at that from the demand side, it really helps us to know where the prices could potentially be. Germany revives coal as energy security trumps climate goals. Nation increased coal burning for power by 13% from last year. Uniper plans to extend operations for some plants in Germany. Why is this happening? I think it's pretty clear. They had a heavy demand. Germany, I think more than anybody, had heavy demand on Russian gas. And then Russia said, okay, you're not going to actually certify the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. I've got an idea. How about we start to, go back and forth. 2 weeks, it was like literally 2 weeks after Nord Stream 2 didn't get online. Ukraine happened. When I look at this type of thing, I see the tensions going real hot right now, and that has an impact on the price of basically everything. Energy crisis, fuels, coal comeback in Germany, same basic information. We're looking at this going on more places, in fact. It's not just them. New sanctions starting to bite Russia's economy as Moscow admits deficit impact. Of course, they're trying to do what they can. The West is hitting them from every single angle, and there's only so much they could do. Now, Russia has found new partners, or increased their partnership, I should say, with India and China and others in Asia. We know where the alliances are. That's important, okay? Russia bans sales of oil to countries imposing a price cap. Action follows G7 moves from barring Western companies from issuing, financing, or shipping Russian crude at prices above $60 a barrel. So they're basically trying to, disincentivize Russia from doing business with other countries. And Russia's basically saying, all right, you want to do that? Well, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. We'll find other buyers. India will buy more. China will buy more. And other Asian countries will buy more. That's the intention. We'll see what happens, though, in the future. Japan inks LNG deals with the US and Oman to secure fuel supply. Heavily reliant again on Russia. So what happens? Oh, we're not friends anymore? Oh, we that wasn't good to have just one supplier of The Russian gas, not a good idea. Anyway, so they're going to Oman, they're going to the US, pulling it through the US on these flotillas of ships coming across, shipping to Europe, shipping to Japan. I'm not sure if this is the most convenient way to do things. I'm not sure if that's sustainable. I mean, really, is this how we're going to do this? Well, apparently they have to. This is just talking about the United States and Europe could cut their dependence on China for electric vehicle batteries. More than $160 billion of new capital spending by 2030. They want this to happen. Is that going to occur? There's so much heavy demand for Chinese refining of rare earth minerals, and you look at all these other things that they're able to produce. Just nobody comes close. Okay, nobody comes close. And I just think it's important to understand where a lot of the supply comes from. Okay. Also, on top of that, you got refining. Sometimes that's not in the same place. Russia willing to resume gas supplies to Europe via Yamal pipeline. They're saying, hey, let's do some business. Let's turn this on. Are you going to do the deal? Yes or no? And of course, Europe doesn't want to do a lot of these deals because they say, well, then we're giving in and we're funding them. So they may actually back off of it. I'm just interested to see where it goes, okay? The Middle East oil and gas nations pouring billions into clean energy. I want to highlight this again. Countries around the world are putting as much money as they can into clean energy. You look at solar panels, you look at the wind, anything. And like I've said before, watch nuclear as well. They're putting the money in. Whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, even the countries that are just filled with oil are doing the same thing. So either we hit peak oil and it's not easy to come by anymore, or regardless how you want to look at it, they're going this direction anyway. So what does that mean for you as an investor? We have this last thing, just showing you the commodities prices and what's happened just specifically year over year. You could look at that. Coal up 135%. On the other end of the spectrum, you're looking at propane down 33%. But does that necessarily translate into what you've paid over the last while? Of course, we looked at where the prices were previously. They were sky high. Hopefully people have been able to benefit from the reduction in this price here. I know a lot of people got fixed energy pricing. That's fantastic. I hope we did right at the right moment. And I'm trying to bring this data to you and make it useful to you. Okay, that's what this channel is all about. It's not just knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's like getting the knowledge and putting it to practical use. If you found this informative, hit that subscribe button down below. It's right next to the like button. And tomorrow, I'm going to give you some great information. See you then.